Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And before we get started into this episode, I do want to say we have 8 more days until the Like Father Like Daughter Kickstarter is over. It's my comic book. It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero, and everyone in the world loves him except for her. And then she inherits his abilities. And our previous issue, we had a pretty big reveal that Casey's mom has actually been the villain this whole entire time, and she is a KGB agent. So this issue, we're really diving deep into that cliffhanger. So hopefully you guys could go check that out. Even at $1 backing, it really does help. Now, jumping into the episode, this week I have like the most comics I've had in months, so very happy about this. And yeah, let's jump right into it. We go least favorite to best pick of the week, and number 10 for me this week is A Man Among Ye, issue 1. Now, this is actually a book I was looking forward to. I've been interested in the Anne Bonny storyline of real life, and I think it's an interesting story of a female pirate, and I think Mary's the other female pirate as well. And I'm curious to see where this book was going to take it, but I feel like it jumps us into the action so quickly that you don't get to really learn anything about Mary besides that she's a female pirate, and there's nothing more past that. We do learn in the end that there's kind of this stowaway British person, a little girl, who you think is a boy and actually is a girl, and that's gonna play a part into the whole mythology of Anne Bonny that happened in real life, like I stated. So she is a bit younger, though. I don't think in real life, I think they were more around the same age, and Mary, so I'm curious to see where they end up taking that. I'm going to probably give the next issue a try to see where it goes, but like I said, I do think that this one kind of jumped in very quickly, and yes, of course it created this pirate world, but what helped define this world past just that it's about pirates and it's a female pirate. So I'm hoping it gets us a little bit more into the character next issue. I did really like the artwork for this book, though. I think it was really bright, and I think a lot of times with pirate stories it tends to be a bit more grittier, so I really like the clean pencils for this one. But overall, I'm going to give this 2 stars. Not much to grab besides maybe the cliffhanger, but if you kind of already knew the story, you knew what direction that was going. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, and that is number 10. All right, we are moving on to number 9. So number 9 for me is Ant-Man issue 5. I'm trying to get the piece of paper because I read this digitally because it is a digital book now. Ant-Man. So I haven't been loving this series, sadly. I'm a huge Cassie Lang fan, and I just feel like it's not really the best Cassie Lang story. I think she's pretty out of character. She continues to yell at her dad and just plays the stereotypical teenage daughter, which I think Cassie is really the complete opposite of, and it still plays that here. And also the villain wasn't quite my favorite, this big bug monster that they have to defeat. So it's very point A to point B. They defeat the monster, story is over. We don't even really get a revelation or resolution about if Cassie's going to go join the West Coast Avengers. They just kind of say, oh, well, Dad, I love you. And Cassie says that, or Ant-Man, Scott says the same thing to Cassie. And that's kind of where it ends. I just feel like all the emotions and character beats are kind of all over the place and not very earned in this issue. So overall, I'm going to give that one 2 stars. Just wasn't a huge fan of it, sadly, and hopefully the next Ant-Man story is a little bit more in character for Cassie, or the next time we see the character. And also the artwork is definitely a bit darker than you would expect for a comedic book like this. Moving on to number 8. Big book that came out this week. I was not a huge fan of the first volume, but I wanted to give this second volume a good honest try, and that is Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 1. I did get the Art Germ Wonder Woman cover. This one's tough, you know. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of metal, so that kind of already plays a part. I'm not a huge fan of this style of storytelling, and I feel like there was a lot thrown at you. I didn't quite care about the characters or the world, so that was already kind of a negative going into this. But I think what was the positive for a lot of people is the negative for me in this book, and that's the anti-life crisis, bringing up Wally again. I'm just kind of tired of the bait, you know? I'm kind of tired of the bait being right in front of you and not really getting true answers. Doomsday Clock, we're supposed to get answers. So many events, we're supposed to learn more about Rebirth, and Rebirth has been so long already, and so long past already. I'm like, do I really care what's up with Wally? And do I really want another Crisis? Haven't we done enough of this? So I just wasn't as invested, and maybe I'm just a bit fatigued of these events, and I just want some good, honest character stories. So, again, just wasn't my thing. I understand. I could definitely see why people will enjoy this story, but just I'm a little fatigued on the events right now from the multiverse of DC. Artwork is really good, though, and obviously Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo has a great creative team dynamic, and that's played out well, but I don't know if I'll be coming for a second issue. We'll have to see what the week looks like. I mean, there's not a lot of comics coming out, so what do I got to lose if I get the second issue? But if it's like a 10-issue week like this week, maybe I'll skip it. We'll see how the week looks, but I wasn't a huge fan of this one. Moving on to number 7, which is also another kind of multiverse story, and that is Young Justice issue 15. Finally, the end of this arc that I was actually really looking forward to. Like, a lot of my favorite characters are here. We have Arrowette, Sideways, of course, my girl Stephanie Brown. But it is so crowded, this book. It is really hard to read through because of it. And the reason this is a little higher than the others, I do think it does a little better of a job to get the character voices in here. We do have some multiverse talk with the old team, which again, I don't even know if that's a positive or not, but we do have that, and at least something feels like it's happening in this book. Artwork is as good as it can be. Again, it's very crowded, so some of the artwork kind of feels rushed to me, and I do believe there's actually 2 artists on this book, so that's always a negative for me if we have 2 different styles, but honestly, it wasn't too noticeable. But yeah, overall, very crowded book, a lot of exposition, not a lot of character beats that I think Brian Michael Bendis usually does a good job with that I haven't seen with this book, sadly. But yeah, overall I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. It was okay. Obviously I'm going to continue to read it because it's Young Justice. I want to see where it goes. There's an interesting cliffhanger with Bart Allen and his motives, even if that kind of came out of left field, but we'll see where that one ends up going. So Young Justice issue 15 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number, I don't even know what we're up to. That is number 7. Moving on to number 6. I was kind of torn with this book, and that is Ghost Spider issue 10. So it was revealed that this was the last issue, but it's also revealed that we're getting another volume. So it's not that Spider-Gwen's over, it just means this chapter is over. And I don't know, I get a lot of inklings after reading this issue, and I'm guessing with COVID and everything that happened with the industry, that this was cut short. It seemed like there was so much more story. I remember there was a story solicited of the Mary Janes going interdimensional rocking and, having rock concerts. So I don't know what happened to that. That would have been fun. But everything really felt cut short, even though there's some good character beats here. I like that Sue Storm is like this version of Doctor Doom, kind of. She puts on the mask and everything. Looks like she killed Doctor Doom. Some really interesting beats. It just happens so quickly. I like that Johnny's not totally a villain, and he's just kind of going along with the ride with Sue. So, yeah, a lot of interesting beats, but then I don't really get the whole social media, get out of my town thing. I don't know why Gwen accepts to go out of town, besides that they're like, we're gonna hurt your dad. It felt a little messy to me. The ending felt really jarring. It felt really quick. So it does seem like this chapter and this creative team kind of ended things sooner than they expected, and I think that's a shame. I don't know that for a fact or not, but just the way it read, it felt that way, and I really like this creative team, and I really like this story, and I'm sad to see it go, and I hope the next chapter brings us some interesting stories, and hopefully we get Spider-Gwen back real soon. So giving that one 3 stars. Again, not a bad story, just maybe not a great ending to this volume. Moving on to number 5. Another one I'm kind of torn on. Strange Adventures issue 2. So, I was a huge Mr. Miracle fan. I really enjoyed that book. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed that book as it went along. I remember the first couple issues, I'm like, I don't know how I feel. And then as the series went on, I'm like, whoa, this book is awesome. And I think it was top tier Tom King. With this book, it kind of has taken that slow pace too. So it's a bit jarring because we get to see the old Adam Strange and then what's going on in the present. And this is intercut with Mr. Miracle and him kind of figuring out Adam Strange, this hero that everyone loves, is lying. And that plays a part into the last chapter where everyone's, he was on top of the world and then he kind of gets destroyed. And I do like the look at celebrity. I think that's super interesting and I'm excited to see where that goes. But I think this issue kind of slowed things down way too much. I think it went back and forth too much that neither part had too much to say. So artwork obviously blows my mind. There's some really great beats here, but overall I do think issue 1 was a bit stronger and I hope we get some more story and more about Adam Strange. I still feel like I don't know the guy, and maybe because I really have never really read much from Adam Strange, but I thought this was going to be a little bit more new reader friendly than it is if they're kind of going that route, not really explaining his character too much. So I'm giving this 3 stars. I do want to mention I did like the quote from Comics Journal. I feel like most of the time comics will reference literature or movies and TV and not really its own medium. So it's kind of cool to see a quote from an actual cartoonist. So I thought that was kind of cool in the end. So I'm going to give that 3 stars, kind of middle of the road for me. Obviously going to continue to see where that one goes, but it wasn't as good as issue 1. Moving on to number 4, which is Vampironica New Blood issue 4, another book that I didn't even expect to end, even though it was a 4-issue mini. I hope we get to see more, because I felt like this book was just starting to rile up and starting to get started, and it just ends. But there's a lot of interesting mythology explored here, where we get to see Vampironica is the apex, and her great-great-great-grandfather is too, and that means that you kill vampires, and you kind of get power from that, and you can control vampires. So it's cool to see her vampire gang and her relative fight each other, and Vampironica having to leave Riverdale. So we'll see where that ends up going, and I do think the moment where her dad died was like, oh, how did that happen? There was like this sword on the side, and somehow he just got impaled by it. I think it would have been easier if the grandfather just killed him. I don't know. The motions of that one I thought was a little strange, but overall, I enjoyed this book. I like the mythology, I like the world, and I like the sass of Veronica, of course, and there's some good humor throughout the book, but some really great mythology being built too. I just wish there was more. I don't know when's the next time we're going to get another chapter, and that kind of leaves you with a little bit of a bad taste, because you're like, oh, I think the story has so much more possibilities, and I don't know if this really felt like an ending. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good story. Artwork is always pretty solid for this too, kind of marrying the horrors with the slice of life that Archie Horror is really great at doing. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is TMNT Power Rangers issue 5. This is the last issue. I feel like there's so many last issues coming out. But yeah, this is just good old fun, and if you enjoy TMNT, you'll probably enjoy this. If you enjoy Power Rangers, you'll probably enjoy this. Now, if you enjoy both franchises, you'll probably love this. Now, I am a Power Rangers fan. I've never really been into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's been super easy to get into this book. You just kind of need to know the ground rules about the TMNT characters, and you'll be pretty good to go. It's very new reader friendly. And this is, again, it was just plain old fun. We get to see the kind of last final act battle between Zords. We get a Turtle Zord. We get see, this is how much I know about TMNT. Shredder, Zord, who teams up with Rita, and just all the different personalities clashing, and it was just a lot of fun. I will say the dialogue was a bit heavy for an more action-heavy issue, but I liked it. I think if you haven't read this series, definitely go and read this one. I think it does a great job at character work, and just this is how you do a crossover, you're really marrying two worlds and getting the best out of them and wanting to really see those interactions and how they would play out. The artwork is a little darker than you would expect for this, but I think it works for a mainly Zord heavy issue and kind of mecha heavy issue. But overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars, and that is number 3. Now moving on to number 2. And that is Valkyrie, Jane Foster, issue 10. Now, I don't know what's going on with this book. I hope it's continuing. I know it was moved digitally, and not many of the ongoing books have been moved digitally, so I hope it's on endings. It's one of my favorite books out right now, and it continues to be. This issue is very, very on the Thor action-heavy side, and Jane Foster has not destroyed, but she's, I guess has destroyed the all weapon. And now it's just Jane Foster trying to defeat Thor's brother. And she also has this really existential look at things of, well, what happens next? What is past this universe? And is it complete darkness? And that's really what she's fighting, is complete darkness. And there's a lot of great philosophy-driven monologues here that I think just works really well with Jane. And that's what really drove the issue for me. And just her inner willpower to fight, even if all odds are against her, which is exactly what her character is about. And she does so in this issue, and defeats Thor's brother with the help of the rest of the Norse gods. And yeah, a really fun issue. I enjoyed this one. I think the artwork was really solid as well. And yeah, it's just such a fun book. And if you enjoy Thor or superhero books in general, this should be on the top of your list. So I'm giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, and this was the obvious number 1 pick for me, and that is Family Tree issue 6. Damn, I love this issue, and I will say I was flipping through it before I read it, and I was a little worried, because the last issue we had the cliffhanger with the brother being older, and we see this kind of post-apocalyptic world, and then I see that the story's going back, and I'm like, wait, I thought we were going into the future. I thought there was this time jump. What happened? Is this going to be a filler issue? And it completely wasn't. It goes back to the grandfather's point of view, who you thought died, at least I thought he died, and we see the past of his relationship with Darcy, the son, and we get a little bit more information about the villains, too, because he gets caught by the villains, and the head is actually this woman who, as a little girl, had to kill her own father because he was turning into a tree. And it's this idea that, it's kind of this X-Men idea, where it's like, oh, we don't want mankind to become this. And then the grandfather's like, well, maybe this is what nature wanted. Maybe this is not a bad thing. So there's some really interesting thematic things going on in this issue. But then it goes back to the father-son relationship was really well done. And then even riles up the action with Grandpa having to leave and trying to find his family again. And that actually being the cause of maybe the villains finding the family and getting to that post-apocalyptic world we saw in the last issue. But damn, this is a really good issue. I love this book. I just think so many great things are happening in it, from character work to the world building to the thematic aspect to it. Artwork is really good too. It's gritty, but it's grounded and earthy, I would even say. It feels earthy. But yeah, really great book. By far my favorite issue of the week, and I gave this 4.5 stars. If you're not reading Family Tree, go read Family Tree, because it's one of Image's best books and one of the books I look forward to every month to read. But let me know in the comments below, what did you enjoy this week? And again, hopefully you guys could go check out my Kickstarter for Like Father, Like Daughter. In the description below, there's the link for that. And follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and go check out our comic book podcast every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, which we talk about all things comics. So be sure to check that out. Thank you guys. Bye.